every bread in the world.
Well, just one bread. What are we making, Landon?
Braid?
Yeah.
Braid. It looks like a braid.
It's gonna look just like your hair.
Actually, but blonde.
Sure. So first we need 2 cups of warm water.
Hair looks like a snake. No, my hair is very elastic.
Hi, it's Ashley from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and welcome back to my channel where I make a lot of cake and cookie decorating tutorials, as well as give a lot of baking business tips. And I'm sure every creator out there has some sort of goal that they're working towards for their channel. This year on my channel, I want to continue giving you guys all of the tutorials that I always have, along with that pricing, maybe a few more business tips this year. And I also want to start expanding my skills. And today we're going to start doing that. I have never really been a bread person before. I've always had difficulty, and I think it's because I've been looking up recipes that actually weren't the greatest. And as you guys know, if you've been on my channel before, I don't like to reinvent the wheel. I just want to be on the lookout for those super awesome recipes that I can make my own. One of my goals as well is to incorporate my children in the learning.
Okay, we need 2 cups warm water.
I need to pour 2 cups of warm water.
And that girl that was reading out all of the instructions is Ashleigh, and she is Cake Legend here on YouTube. She does a lot of real-time cake decorating, so definitely go and check out her channel in the right-hand corner here. But she is also working on finishing up her red seal to be a full pastry chef. So I thought, what better way to learn how to bake bread than from someone who actually just learned the ins and outs of baking bread. So really all we're doing is we're activating the yeast here. Bread is really just a series of having your wet ingredients and your dry ingredients separated and activating that yeast. I always panic if I don't see that yeast foaming up right away, but sometimes it just takes a little bit of time. And now we're adding in the oil, and by the way, I will post the recipe that we referenced down in the description box below. We pretty much follow it to a T, but later on in the video, we'll show you the variation that we did. Now, the reason that we chose challah bread was because it only required all-purpose flour, and I didn't have any bread flour on hand. This whole bread making business was very on a whim, so we didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare, but luckily, this bread is something that you probably have all of the ingredients for, and I tend to keep a lot of quick rise yeast on hand. I should make mention that my yeast was a little bit past expiry by a couple months, but it was fully enclosed, so it ended up being just fine.
How long do I have to mix it for?
You have to get that yolk in there.
Like,
You gotta break it up.
After sufficiently mixing all of those wet ingredients, it's time to add in those dry ingredients. And the recipe, I think, said to knead this by hand, but we're just using a dough hook because that's why I bought this KitchenAid, so it could do all things. Now, it is a little bit tricky sometimes to tell when the dough is done. I don't want to over knead this because then the dough ends up really, really tough. So I kind of took it out when I thought it was probably done, but maybe not all the way. And I kneaded it just a little bit by hand. So it should kind of feel like it's snapping back just a little bit, but it should also feel fairly soft. You don't want it to feel like it's very, very difficult to deal with because then you probably have gone too far. Make sure to oil that bowl really well. I just used a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, and then you want to place it in a warm spot. But I find that this first proofing, which just means leaving it and letting it rise, isn't as important as the second one. And I only learned that from Ashleigh because she told me that. All right, now moving on to the second variation. I'm just taking some green onion. Chives would also work really well for this, but honestly, I didn't notice the green onion as much as I thought I would considering I put in this much, so I would double that for next time. But I really love the sharpness of green onion, so it's completely up to you. Now, by the time we got to the second round of bread, my kids were fully done with making bread. It's a big waiting game, and we basically made the bread already, so they went off to play. And this is Ashleigh making this second loaf, but she's not going to do the same thing here that we did with the other one. So this dough was actually made the exact same way, but we're not letting it proof at this stage. We're going in and we just put in a little bit of extra virgin olive oil just by eyeball, no measurements or anything. And then we're placing in these little bits of dough. Now, We thought at first that we would kind of have more of a pull apart where it's very, very small like this, but we end up doing something a little bit different. I still think it's necessary to cut up the dough in these small little bits so that you're making sure the cheese and the onions and the olive oil is being evenly distributed. In future, I think I'll also add in little bits of jalapeno, and maybe even little bits of bacon would work really well in this too. I would also love to do a super sweet version. I don't know what I would put inside, but I think this would do really, really well with some Nutella or chocolate ganache. Then Alia formed everything into bigger dinner roll balls, just because we decided, hey, maybe we want some dinner rolls instead of that small pull-apart bread. And after about an hour and 15 minutes, this is what the original bread that we made looked like. So, so beautiful. I get it now when I see other content creators who specifically dedicate their time to bread, how happy they get when they get to this stage where they actually get to put everything together. So we're trying out 2 different techniques here. Being someone who works with fondant a lot, I wasn't really sure what to do with this because the dough snapped back quite a bit. So I tried kind of this like twisting motion with the braided motion, but I think in the end, Alia's technique works better where she just kind of keeps pulling those bread pieces apart and then braids it just like a regular braid. And if you don't know how to braid, it's really, really simple with bread. I remember my husband used to talk about all the time how he was so good at braiding, but then when it came to hair, he was like, well, it doesn't make sense because it's all these strands coming apart. And he was talking about this bread that he used to braid with his mom. So to start off, you need to make sure that you're separating it in 3 equal parts, as equal as you possibly can. I should have done this with a scale since this was my first time instead of just eyeballing it, because the beauty of this bread really does lie in this beautiful braid and it comes out so nice and puffy. You pinch the top ends together and then notice you're just taking the outside piece and then overlapping it into the middle. And don't pull too hard or anything like that. It is bread, not hair, so you're just kind of gathering it and then you pinch those ends together. Here is mine, and it kind of looks really cool with all those twists and turns, but it doesn't bake out that well. So definitely follow this direction, which was given by Alia. And we're going back to our dinner rolls, which have now proofed. I think it was another hour that we let these proof for, and then we're putting on all the rest of that. My kids are back now. They've played their whole rest of their day, and they're taking that egg yolk and brushing it on. And we actually forgot to brush egg yolk onto the dinner rolls, which was just a misstep in my opinion, because I love getting that really super shiny egg on top. And just to add some variation, we're putting some sesame seeds on top. My daughter is really putting a lot of sesame seeds on there. And this is how they turned out after about 37 minutes of baking. So, so beautiful. Those dinner rolls, by the way, were so delicious. We had some chicken as well as some Filipino sausage, and we were just dipping it all in and having it together, and it was so delightful. And what I was most impressed with was how beautiful this baked up on the inside. It is important to let the bread rest just a little bit, because if you cut it too warm, then it kind of doesn't have that nice fluffiness in the middle. I had this both with savory and sweet options. It was delicious with Nutella. I also used it to make my breakfast sandwiches, and that was just fantastic. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading weekly, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye!